so that you can win those big contracts with less stress. I'm here on a regular basis, so feel free, jump on, ask me a question, or DM me anything that you feel like would be great to cover. This is your opportunity to basically ask me anything. Okay, so this week's topic for discussion that I've chosen is PQQs, or pre-qualification questionnaires. So to start with, why do we have to do PQQs? Basically, under the CDM 2015 regs, so the main health and safety regulations for construction, it's a legal requirement and responsibility of a client to ensure that they engage competent contractors. So basically, pre-qualification is the way to ensure that the client or the contractor is meeting the minimum standards of the client and the law. So this will also be relevant if you employ subcontractors as well, and that you're checking that they meet the minimum requirements of the law. So you may very well have your own pre-qualification questionnaire for your subbies. So PQQs, they're pass-fail. You either qualify or you don't. So you either pass or you don't. And basically, you should only have to do one per company for private clients. So it should only have to do one, and that should cover you for that client. They know you meet the minimum standards for working with that client going forward. So when do PQQs need to be completed? There's a few different scenarios here. The first is with a tender. So this is a lot more common in public tendering, where you complete a PQQ and you submit it with your tender every time. Happens a lot more in public, not so much in private. You need to complete a PQQ to get on an approved supplier list of a client. So you may complete a PQQ to get onto an approved supplier list to then be able to tender for a client. It shouldn't happen, but a lot of the time in the industry it does. But you're completing the PQQ prior to engagement. So, i.e., you've tendered for a client, a new client, you've won the works, they want you to fill in their PQQ prior to you starting. So that's their check that you meet the minimum standards. It shouldn't happen in that order. They should be checking that you meet the minimum standards before you tender, but it's common in the industry for it to happen in this order. Obviously, they're expecting that you meet their minimum standards when they send the tender. The last one that I want to talk about is third-party membership. So completing PQQs for third-party memberships. So what am I talking about here? Basically, most larger companies, they'll use external companies for their PQQ, for their pre-qualification. So the examples of these third-party companies are Construction Line, Chaz, SMAS, Builders Profile, Safe Contractor, etc. So they're outsourced PQQs effectively. That's what's happening. So, for example, like Belfer Beatties, I think they use Construction Line. I know Galliford Try use Builders Profile. I think Kia used Chaz, for example. You'll have to have this membership and complete these to work for these companies. This is an outsourced PQQ. If you've heard the terms PAS 91 and Common Assessment Standard, these are basically standard sets of questions for pre-qualification. And what it's trying to do is standardize the industry. So if you have one standard set of questions and you complete and you comply with that, then you should be able to work for other companies with that tick those boxes, for example. And companies like Belfer Beatties and I think Kia, etc. as well, they are starting to sign up with the Common Assessment Standard, which means it doesn't matter who you do it through, Construction Line, Chaz, etc. If you get the Common Assessment Standard, you should be able to work for them. And that's great because it means if it's rolled out well, it will mean you don't have to get the multiple construction line chas, etc., to work for different contractors. Hopefully, it will reduce that burden. Unfortunately, questions vary between companies a little bit, and still is the case that most companies will have their own version of a pre-qualification questionnaire. But generally speaking, the theme of the information is very similar. So I'm going to pop up an example, have a little look at an example and look at the kind of information. All right. So this is Redrow's pre-qualification questionnaire, and the standard information as part of their questionnaire, and most others as well, is contractor information. So details about the company, trading number, registration number, office, etc., directors, any company information like that, where you operate, key management within the company, how many staff you have employed and self-employed, etc. Whether you have quality management systems in place, so ISO 9001, and also your previous work, so work you've done for Redrow as well as work you've done for other companies. So references are quite common as a requirement in PQQs. Health and safety is another section that is involved in each PQQ. The reason being they need to check that you comply with the minimum standards, which is basically CDM 2015. So they're asking for your figures, and they're also asking some questions about your health and safety arrangements and how you control health and safety. Sustainability here, we've got a little, this is becoming more and more important in the construction industry as we head to a net zero industry. So how are you managing sustainability? Design, if design is applicable, and a financial section, again, which is applicable to most pre-qualification questionnaires. And the reason that they want to see previous accounts and other financial information like credit checks is because they want to know that you're not going to go bust if you get awarded the job. You can that you have enough turnover to maintain the work and not go bust on the job. Insurances, another important element of PQQs. Redrow have an equal opportunities section as well, so, and the declaration. Right, so that's a quick example of the different sections that a PQQ might contain as well. Basically, because PQQs from different companies will ask similar questions, the best approach to PQQs is to build a PQQ database. So all the questions that you've answered previously, you have in a central location, and all the documents that you have to attach to a PQQ, if you have them in a central location. This is going to make your filling out of any new PQQs streamlined and a lot easier, because you should be able to just transfer information over or transfer it over and make minor adjustments based on the question. Right, so in summary, basically a PQQ, it's a legal requirement when working with new companies for the client to check that you meet the minimum standards, and they're also pass-fail. Make it easy for yourself and build a database from previous PQQs so you're not creating from scratch every time. Okay, right, that's it for today. Stay tuned for my next live. I'll cover another impactful tendering topic. If you'd like to speak with me about your tendering, I offer a limited number of free calls each month to talk specifically about how you can improve your tendering. There's a link on my LinkedIn profile if you want to book one of these. Thanks, and see you again soon.